It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Morning Perspective. Today is September 19th, 2019. Means for all my sales and business people out there, you have exactly 12 days left to make September 19th a month to remember. And hopefully it's a month to remember in a good way. So it is crazy how time flies, guys. And speaking of time flying, this is episode 37 of Morning Perspective. It is hard to believe that we've done that many episodes. And I got to tell you, since day one of this show, I have always had the guy that you're about to meet in my sights and on my short list of people that I wanted everybody in my group here to be able to meet. So I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman, Mr. Doran, in Philadelphia in person last year. We interacted a lot on social media, but I was in town for some business. We caught up for a couple of hours just to chat, and I got to tell you, it was one of the most thought-provoking couple of hours that I've spent in the last few years here. And so I am super excited for you guys to get to know this guy. So he is the founder of Culture Matters, and I'm going to let him describe exactly what that is because I think he has a very unique approach to referring to what he does. So I don't want to steal his thunder or misspeak on exactly what he does. He is an author of an incredibly unique book that I think you guys should all go pick up called 30 Days of Thought. We're going to dig into that a little bit. And he is an absolute expert in human behavior and interaction. So I am excited for all of you guys to get to meet my friend and just an incredible human being, Mr. Doran. So without further ado, Jay, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for the kind words and also the voice, the platform to say something honest.
Brother, that's what we do, man. That's what we do. That's why I was excited to have you. There's not too many people that are as real, raw, honest, and direct as you are, and I think that it all comes it all comes from a place of helping people, right? Helping people understand, interact, and live better lives, and that's what we're all about here. So why don't we just get started, man? So why don't you tell people a little bit about, your background, where you're from, how you grew up, all those kinds of things, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so to answer your first question in the sense of introducing Culture Matters, I would say that it began about helping me. I was adopted into a foster home in a few months of age and made a decision at some point, whether consciously or unconsciously is left to be determined at a later date, to not accept the love of my adopted parent. So this whole experiment as a business, which is, I would argue, every business in a sense, and is an experiment of the ideation or the ideals or the philosophy of the founder, like yourself with your company, right? It started with you. It started with your idea. It started with me attempting to value myself. So the purpose of Culture Matters as an idea is to help people uncover their genius. I'll define genius as the recognition of pattern and the inaction upon imagination. So you have an idea, you see something, you recognize something, and then you take action towards it. So help people uncover their genius is the purpose. Because I believe when people read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go, they develop more value for themselves and others. See, I've never valued myself. If we were to go into the past where this was seeded as a very young adolescent and then promulgated and perpetuated and compounded into just being a desiring, selfish, hedonistic, bastard son, child, man, child, entrepreneur, focused on, that success. So the mission is to read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid and speak to let go every day, which is what I do daily to lead by example, and then to do the work that I do behind the scenes with companies, which is cultural architecture. That isn't necessarily an industry. It's actually something that I've created, and we've done extremely well, based on the client feedback, of course. I did this to help people. No, that's actually, it would be a contradiction of terms. I did this to feel something, to help me.
You're a people.
Through me, because I can't help someone I can't see, and I can't see you if I can't see me. So Culture Matters is an idea. And it's a medium, like a business, right? The medium's the message, an idea to help people uncover their genius, think their own thoughts, develop themselves, value other people. And the goal is to make curiosity cool. That's the idea of Culture Matters. Now, what I do behind the scenes of companies, like I said, cultural architecture, that comes down to me working behind the scenes with the CEO. Some of them you know, some of them you don't. Most you don't, because it's better left unsaid, like the Wizard of Oz. I like to be behind the curtain. As you see, I interview a lot of people. I don't normally talk so much. So like I said, thank you, but I don't know thank you. Is that really what I want to do, right? So, and when it comes to that, it's what is the company's story? What is the company's language? What is the company's narrative? What are the symbols and what mediums tie together the organization so that people that align with the company or country or family's value system are attracted and hired? They're retained through the education of the company, because accountability without education is autocracy, which is pretty crappy, guys, by the way. We live in America. Education's good. So that's I do that behind the scenes, and that's fairly complex and not for the average person. But Culture Matters is an idea that the average person is only average because they've made a decision reaffirming what they believe unconsciously, that they are average, when they're really actually geniuses, everybody on the planet.
Amen. I told you guys you were in for a treat this morning. This guy is he's something. And so I was studying you, reading up to this, studying you recently. I've been following Jay for years and listening to what Jay does. Much of what you do, man, whether you realize it or not, there's so many people that you're touching that you don't even interact with just through the videos that you put out there. You have how many videos? 1,900 and something on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, that we published. We should probably publish the other 2,000.
1,928 videos, I believe, is what it said. But this guy helps so many people, and not just the companies that he works with that pay him, but just in general, he's helping people. And I think that it's interesting, man. I think it's very profound that you say, you know, I did this to help myself. And ultimately, one of the things that I say all the time is that, what do they tell you when you get on an airplane? They say if the oxygen pressure should fluctuate in the cabin, that you should put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help others. And the reason for that is that we are essentially useless to others until we figure out what our true powers are ourselves. And so this guy, how many books have you read in the past year, do you think? You even know that number?
Yeah. And let me answer first, and I'd like to add something. So my 135 is over here. This is 135. Yeah, they get usually like 187 and a half a year since 2009. This is when it comes to reading, I read not to learn. I read to unlearn what I thought I knew. Right? I don't read to learn. I read to unlearn what I think I know. So instead of reading my book or anyone's book to dogmatically just adhere to whatever is said, meaning just like, oh, lay down your mental capacities, open up your emotions, and, pray to their knowledge. Instead of doing that and just following blindly what I have to say or anyone else, contradict, question, analyze, reflect through. So when I read, I'm doing it to unlearn what I thought I knew. People argue quantity, quality. My answer usually to that, I'll go a little further since I have the platform, is instead of just working smart versus working hard, work smart and hard. So yeah, when I'm not talking to a human, whether it's a client or a stranger on the street, I'm listening to an audiobook and I map out my day. So anytime that I'm sitting down that I'm not writing, I'm reading to think. And I hope that gives people clarity. It's like someone reads a lot of books, someone doesn't read a lot of books. A lot is, that's a term that's a subjectivity, because what's a lot? I mean, a lot to a third grader shouldn't be a lot to a Harvard graduate or whatever. So anyway, I'm thinking often, and every single person that I meet, my goal is to learn from, by, and through. And I do that through listening, like you're listening now, like I do in the interviews that I do, 171 to date in the last 2.5 years. And I read a book. I'm not reading it to learn. I'm reading to unlearn what I think I know. And I do that through listening, by arguing with myself to contradict my beliefs. And yes, I spend a lot of time reading. And it's also about what you read is very important, because we can just throw up a page. For example, I wrote this a few minutes before we started because I want to prepare my mind for this conversation about perspective. So I wrote this a couple minutes before we started. At bottom, an argument has accrued throughout our common era, millennia, and long, long before it. Before the sands of time began to pour, a substance was or was not integral in the cataclysmic event leading up to or led by a process. In some sense, this process was life. If not in an objective sense, nonetheless, as a metaphor. Where there is a start, there is a finish and an end. Or is there? Questions from life after death to life at all, in its substantive value or meaning, plague us constantly and potentially into infinitude. But one answer we can seemingly continue to ask, or to continue to strive for, and that is, what is our perspective? Questions do you want to live by? So, I'm blathering over here, but I wrote that a couple minutes before because I'm mentally preparing for a conversation with you. So yeah, it's not about the reading of the books. It's about thinking through people that invested maybe more energy, consciousness through their brain in thinking things, so you can be more useful to yourself, value others, and not be a dickhead. How about that? It's really about not being a dickhead.
I couldn't agree more, man. And it's interesting, I think about why I read, right? And I have not been a reader my whole life. Only in the past handful of years here have I really committed to reading and educating myself beyond what the public education system was so kind to provide me. And we'll get into that conversation. Hopefully we have some time to talk about that, because you've got some unique perspective on that as well. But what I've found over the years is that reading these books, and ultimately what you're saying, unlearning what you thought you knew or what you've been fed as a small human, it's interesting. It carves you into a new, improved version of yourself, because now you're consuming information just in a one-on-one sense. And it's coming from another human, but it gives you the time to actually digest it, learn it, understand it as you see fit, right? There's no, between you and a book or you and an audio book, the only emotion that is transferred is what you create yourself. So I find that you're able to digest information and actually use it in your life in a completely different fashion than when it is taught to you in a structured classroom or typical educational type platform. What do you think about that?
In what context?
In the context of, how do you find that the education that you choose to consume, so the books, the audio books, the information that you choose directly to consume. So when we have an interaction, you don't get to choose exactly the words that are coming at you. But when you choose a book, you spend some time to think about that and what you actually want to learn. And so the way that we learn through books, I feel, is completely different than the way that we learn in the rest of life.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a blessing and a curse to that, because in a sense, one's unconscious, without them being aware, could actually propel them and draw them like a magnet to reading things that will never contradict their beliefs, and is actually an unconscious bias of an individual's lack of awareness of their own insecurity. So there's a devilish game that can be played when you're actually not forced to have conversations with people that you are not prepared for. That's why it's so important to listen clearly to people and shut off your mind to what you're thinking, and be able to condition yourself to hear clearly what someone's saying, so you can hear what they're not necessarily saying, just like I did in the moment right now listening to you, because there's other conversations there. I mean, if I wasn't present, I wouldn't be able to hear the other conversation, which is what I just said, which has nothing to do with what you actually asked, which is actually where the real new idea or conversation I could see in your eyes and your body language. You're like, I've never thought of that before. Well, neither did I, Brian. I'm just listening to you. That's the beauty of discourse. And so on the education, though, let's go back to that for a second. Well, neuropsychologically, now we understand enough about the brain after empirically studying it that there's different capacities of it. So let's just make it very simple and say that there's like an instinct part, there's an emotional part, and there's a rational part. Let's just make it oversimplified. So any neuroscientist watching this is a very layman's explanation just for the audience, so we can all at least grasp the concepts. If we are not interested in the content, that rational brain just doesn't seem to absorb. So here's a good example. The worst movie that you ever saw, Brian, was the storyline good or was it bad? The worst movie. Good storyline or bad storyline?
It's a good storyline.
The worst movie ever?
Oh, the worst movie ever would be a bad storyline. Sure.
Okay. And a good movie has a bad storyline and a good storyline.
Usually a mix of a little bit of up and down if it's a good movie that keeps your attention, right?
Exactly. So that aligns with another conversation, which is the hero's journey. But let's just go and say that the good storyline has the good movies. The good movie has the good storyline. Okay. That shuts down the part of the brain that wants to get stressed and excitably leave, fight, flight, feed, fornicate, freeze, and it arouses the emotional system that curiosity can blossom. So in the classroom, what everyone here can think about and reflect about their experience in the classroom, well, was it dry and prosaic and boring and contrived and uninteresting, their experience? Or was it blossoming with, enigmatic, just emotional upheaval, excitement, and fun? If it's the former, if it's boring and uninteresting, they probably had a fairly uninteresting, unenthralled experience in pedagogy and in learning. If it's exciting and magnificent and all these things, and they learn to, then they may be a professor today. Now, I will, bring this up for everyone to think about. Think of the teacher that you had in school that was exciting. There might have been one. And see if you're in an industry today that aligns with what they taught you, or do you study on your free time some things that you learned through that teacher that you did like? Do you have any personal experience? Your face lighting up.
Yeah, 100%, man. I am to this day a history buff, and my favorite teacher of all time was my high school history teacher. And, I was interested in history prior to that, but it literally cemented my interest in, and what's interesting is that he was a United States history teacher. However, because of my interest in history, world history became our offline conversation outside of class. And to this day, my knowledge of world history is still intact because of that guy. So I have a question, though, that I want to ask you about, because there's a lot of people on here that are business owners involved in businesses that they either own or they're leaders in. So when it comes to culture within a business, describe what you frequently describe. I've heard you describe this in other interviews. The relationship between the owner and the idea, and then the business, and how that culture is ultimately created.
Yeah, well, let's think about it. Your company, what's it called?
The Pavement Group.
Okay. Were you the first individual in it?
Yes.
So the business is first a vision to a solution of a problem. Like, meaning prior to your organization, you were in another ecosystem, another business, correct?
Correct.
Did you believe at that time that you were good at what you did? You could solve a problem for the customer, for someone through that organization.
Yes.
Your vision to a solution of a problem gave you the confidence to do that for the customer. And then at some point you left. So whatever it was that you did from a useful standpoint habitually, that was an explication, a manifestation, an activity that represented whatever that company was at one time, because the company was an idea that you worked for. But then you started your company. So then what does that mean? Well, then your business is really just your vision to a solution of a problem first, and the profit is the margin in between what it costs to solve the problem and what comes in. And how you create alignment in an organization, which is really the word we want to talk about, not necessarily culture. That's an effect. It's both a cause and effect. It's a verb and a noun. It's complex. Let's talk about alignment. Well, you have to voice what you believe. So you attract customers that say, I like this person. I trust this person. I'll hire this person. You have to voice what you believe. So other people, your future mentees, your employees who work with and for you will say, I like this person. I trust this person. I want to learn from this person and model this person, just like the history teacher and you. And well, what you believe needs to be written down and codified. Why? So other people can read it and reflect on it and develop themselves through it. Just like we just talked for 20 minutes about reading books to develop and learn and think and grow. And if it isn't written down, well, people can't read your mind. Like, for example, in one of the excerpts in 30 Days of Thought, it's called Can't Read Minds. You can't read your mind. So your customer can't read your mind, so you spend all your money on branding and marketing to try to convince them to work with you, but companies spend no money on understanding how to codify their value system, what they believe, their purpose, their goals, their vision, their mission, to lay the framework to attract people to work with them. So you have to get the story down, the language down, the symbolism. What are the uniforms that tie everything together? What makes a private, a general, and the mediums. You have to have training in your organization, because accountability without education is autocracy. People know what autocracy means. Autocracy is dictatorship. You want to hold someone accountable like you're my son, every night we sit down and we talk about the things he has to do. And then he's, by the way, so afraid of you to say he doesn't know how to fix the thing. And you have to taught him how to clean his bed. So now he's just not doing it. And now he's not doing it. So you're just yelling at your kid. And then your kid's yelling at you. And now all of a sudden you're it's him. He's got a disorder. Let's put him on ADD medicine. So good example.
I told you guys you were in for a treat.
So this is the reality. So when I work with a client, I don't say anything. I do a discovery. I shadow the company for as long as it takes. Usually doesn't take less than a week. And then I write a book for them. And the book is between 20 and 50,000 words. It really depends. That's not really relevant. It's all about what is the substance within it. But the book is called The Culture Puzzle. I created the theory. I own the theory. And the theory helps a lot of people. And the Culture Puzzle is basically, it provides them their company's inception stories, their value system, the belief, the purpose, the vision, the mission, the goal, the language, the ranking system, the symbolism, like the smell and the color and the uniforms and the mediums, how to train, what to train, and a psychological analysis of what the ownership is not aware of based on every single thing that they say in and around their people, because all I do is take notes and notes and notes and notes and notes, and then I deliver them a book, and the book delivers them the groundwork of creating alignment. And then after that is a real, the consulting process starts. So I go in and I don't talk. I just listen. That's why I'm not used to all this. I usually, just interview people and listen as well, because listening does more for me for learning than talking. And that's the groundwork. So if I was going to say, something simple about culture is that everything you think you know about culture, you don't. However, the individual, because it all starts with a business, like Brian, well, it's the vision to a solution of a problem first. And the profit's the margin in between what it costs to solve and what comes in. Now, you can get away, biologically speaking, like we work in small groups and, you can touch 20 people, you can touch 50 employees. Once you get past that, even if you're that servant leader, you're just not going to see them anymore. And that means they can't see you. And our children are really great at listening to what we do, not what we say. And our employees are our children, not in an autocratic, dictatorial, positional way. Our employees are our children in a mentee-mentor way. Our employees are our future children that'll take care of us when we're grandparents and we can't even poop. Our employees are our brothers and our sisters, so we must lead them not only by example, but create an idea worth spreading. Have a clear story of the company. Have clear value system. Have great education. Have clear language and symbolism and all these things that may sound crazy and, contrived. But if you look at the greatest brands in the world, they have internal branding within where people will die to work there. And that's what I do behind the scenes. Now,
That, by the way, all of that right there is exactly why I wanted to have you on the show, because what I try to explain to companies through my training company, Top Contractor School, is the importance of that vision. And by the way, I believe that every company, no matter how much time they spend on that value system, that vision, that building that culture, how much time they dedicate to it, always has space for improvement, always has a better way, because it's continuous, right? As people come in and out of your business, as the business changes daily because of customers coming in and out, it is a constant changing environment, right? Deals are won and lost in sales. It changes the feeling, the culture. It changes everything. But the foundation of that needs to be solidified over and over and over again. And that ultimately, I didn't know that you wrote those books for companies, but that's probably the most powerful thing that I've heard you say about what you do. Because I believe that no matter what we do, one of my people is on here and she says who we are. We have a document that says, who are we? This is who we are. And it lists everything that we believe. And so when we sell to people, we actually say, this is who we are, this is what we believe. And if you believe what we believe, then there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't do business together. Then we just have to figure out what the terms of that agreement are. If we believe the same things, we ultimately should be doing business together and interacting. But the reality is that the vision, I believe, that you set when you create a business and you create an idea that solves a problem, that idea gets knocked off track a lot of times through the everyday trials and tribulations of business, right? And so that idea of having that foundation, of having that document, having a living, breathing statement of who we are, what is the vision, and that vision evolves, right? As technology changes and business environment changes and all of that type of stuff, that idea that was originally incepted for a business has to evolve, or ultimately the business will die. And so we see that in people that get so dug into their idea that doesn't ever evolve, that sometimes businesses cease to exist. And so I think the work that you do, man, and the point that I'm trying to get to, the work that you do for these companies is so incredibly important. It is such a unique idea. I love the fact that you don't really call it it has become a business, but it is ultimately an idea. And with that said, all of our businesses are. But I love the fact that you don't brand or talk about your business as a business. I think it's
Yeah, well,
unique.
what better way to dissuade everyone from who is not aligned with me? Who we could say doesn't like me. That's a very layman, hollow explanation of their the psychology of the human condition. But let's just say, what better way than disavowing an alignment, disavowing a potential relationship, disavowing a potential waste of time for all parties, than to not be clear what it is. And then people that ask, then they can go through the qualification process, the conversation with the staff, the application, the process, because, obviously there's only so many books that I'm going to write. So it's like the I don't like those. Because and it's easy not to be clear because it's not about the same things, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's the complete opposite, and you're creating a pull. Like every day I'll have a conversation with someone at the highest echelon of whatever industry because of the amount of empathy, content. You're going to call it content, conversations that are going out. People will reach out and say, what is going on? What are you about? How can we work together? And then a lot of people are maybe they'll unfriend or they're on watch, and perfect, because we aren't in need of each other. I would like a relationship with everyone in the world. I'm going to hug someone that may be apathetic towards me or indifferent towards me or not, be aligned or like me. I'll hug them. I'm not going to ask them to work together because they're not open and curious and ready to reflect on that level of truth, because the truth will set you free to the point where you're dead. So yeah. I mean, that's very important to me, is to be chosen and also choose who we work with at that level, right? So yeah, there's a difference there.
So I want to talk real quick. Hopefully,
which is why I don't do this very often.
We're running we're running a little bit over on time. So if you got to run, let me know. We're at like 32 minutes.
I block 90 minutes. I mean, if we're gonna, this is the thing. If we're gonna do something, I don't do this for a reason. I don't like the constant. See, this is the thing. Everyone needs to listen very clearly what I'm about to say. Most people are so out in the open. They have so much attention. It's the easiest place to hide. The more attention you have, it's easier to hide from yourself. That's why I interview people. And when I interview them, no one even knows what I do, because not once have I ever said, oh yeah, this is what I do too. This is what I'm about. No, the interview is to listen and ask questions based on what they say, to hear what is unsaid, to ask more questions that are not preordained, that are not contrived, to uncover the interviewee's genius, so everyone wins, including the interviewer. I don't do these types of things because it's easy to hide in plain sight hearing myself talk. However, if the medium makes sense and we're going to do it, and I'm talking through my pain, not to hide from it, because I trust that your audience wants to wrap themselves around cultural conversations, individual psychological conversations. 30 minutes is 900 seconds. No, 1,800 seconds. That's a joke. What are we going to do? I got 90 minutes my time block for a conversation before my next meeting, because if I'm going to do it, right, and I trusted you about this, that you were gonna
100%. Let's roll, brother. I'm down. You know we can sit here and talk all day, man. So
because the 30 minutes was we're gonna get to the surface of someone's, the conception that people have of why they're doing things is usually a mask that they haven't even in themselves broken through to figure out what drives them actually, period. So when I'm interviewing people, we don't get until about 50 minutes to an hour before they finally tell me that their father never looked at them straight in the eyes. And that's why they're 0.001% in the industry. because they remember that every single meeting that they go into, when this person doesn't believe in them, they remember that. And they go in there and they get the sale. And they're worth $40 million. And then they say, Jay, I don't know what to do. I sold my company. I'm bored. No, you're not bored. You're not happy because you're not fulfilled, because you never worked on the Father not looking at you. So if we're going to have a conversation, we might as well have is there any questions? People saying, what does that guy drink coffee? No, I haven't had coffee since July, but I do run 40 miles a week.
You're awesome, man.
I had to stop drinking coffee. It was too much energy.
Yeah, I remember when I met you in Philadelphia, you were on a Red Bull kick. Did you kick the Red Bull too?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
Done with all that, yeah. So let's talk about 30 Days of Thought for a second, because I want people to understand. I believe that book will help people in that process, right? In that discovery process of themselves, and I think that anybody here that this conversation, and I think everybody that's on this stream, on the replay, whatever it is, listening on podcast, that this conversation has to spark your interest about yourself. Has to.
People ask me all the time, why did I write this book? I didn't write this book. The book wrote me. The book is a collection of thoughts. I started writing consistently my thoughts to be able to look at myself, because it was recommended to me
to do that.
Period. So I listened. I started writing, and writing helped me see how much of a liar I was. Writing helped me see how often I omit things to myself, or I'm in a coffee with someone and they say something and I decide not to tell the truth because it could hurt their feelings, when that has nothing to do with me. And therefore I'm surrounded by people who don't know who I am, because I'm not honest with myself enough to actually attract people that want to be around me. So I started writing, and guess what? Writing to think, to reflect, to disagree with yourself, to contradict your beliefs, helps you value yourself more. And when you can value yourself more, you can bring more value to other people in your life, and you will have more meaning. So 30 Days of Thought is just an idea of reading to think, and then writing after the thought, your own thoughts in the book. And thank you, Dennis Yu, great friend of mine, Blitz Metrics. They offered a breakdown of video minutes, like we partnered on the book. And here we go. It teaches you, because it's writing to think, writing to think, writing to develop, and then film a video on your thought, not to go and get everybody to worship you, but to look at yourself on the video, to see yourself. I couldn't look at myself on video for years. I never even thought about it.
Because?
It never even became a thought, because I wasn't even aware enough for it to be a thought. Because why would I love myself if I've never accepted love? So how could I value myself? But I could be a great speaker.
You are a great speaker.
And there's no causality between being a great speaker and being valuable to yourself. So you're just really in a paradox, and you're full of it. But there is causality with valuing yourself and having a fulfilling life. So the point of 30 Days of Thought is that even if you completely aren't open, and you're not even aware that you're not open, when you follow the exercises, in spite of yourself, the you that you think you want to value yourself, that'll kind of shimmer, away, fly away, that little imaginatory, who I want to be. Because the who you are that you're not aware of will kind of blossom and come out, and before you know it, you're just more fulfilled. That's the process. Everybody, there's no right way to use the book, but dang it, you got to do all the steps. You got to read the things. You got to write your thoughts. Disagree. It's not about memorizing what I have to say, and then film the videos. And there's 90 of these thoughts in the book, so you'll have 90 pieces of written content, video content. If you want to put them out to the world, that's your choice. But I really say don't put it out to the world until you've looked at yourself. Because what you see, you may not want in the world. And it's so easy to film a video and then put it out and never look at yourself. So easy to hide in plain sight. You know, I know this well because I did this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. I did this in every conversation that I had with every person I met after 11 years old, when I was the fat kid that got in shape and everybody wanted to ask me questions about working out. And now I can finally be loved. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's all a mirage. So no, I'm not a motivational speaker.
What you just described, man, is mind blowing to me. Sitting here, because I say this often, but I have a long way to go on my journey. I think we all do, right? But the reality is that through doing this show, through interviewing people, through listening to understand and really learn from the people that I interact with, through writing, through taking your advice to not have my book published by somebody else, but to actually write it myself. What you learn about yourself is so unbelievably valuable. And what I say is that, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, is that as you go through these exercises and as you look at a video and see something about yourself that you don't like, you start to naturally improve those things. And you start to really understand yourself. You start to really be able to actually improve yourself. Not improve yourself by everyone else's standards, but by looking in the mirror and liking that person a little bit more than you did yesterday. And when that happens, when you start to actually respect yourself, when you are making real improvements, not improvements that you have to improve to show to other people, to your point. Putting the video out is a choice to show your improvement, in my opinion. And that's important for people to see, to be inspired, to improve their own life. But the reality is that this life is about looking in the mirror and being proud of that person, and being a little bit more proud of that person every day than you were the day before. And even when you lose, being able to know that that loss was intentional by pushing yourself into a direction that was ultimately, you knew it was uncomfortable, that it was something you weren't comfortable doing before you ever got started. And I think that whole exercise of going through your book for me was the reason that I was inspired to write my book myself, and also the reason why that book is not completed yet, because I could have done what everybody else does, or what most people do, not everybody, but what a lot of people do is just hand their information to somebody else and let them put it into their words. But I feel like those words that we put on a page, the words in your book, for them to ultimately impact me in the biggest way, they had to come from you. They couldn't be paraphrased by a ghostwriter. They couldn't be paraphrased by anybody else, by somebody even documenting what you are saying out loud. It's not the same as what you're going to put down on a page. And I think that exercise of that is the equivalent of going to the gym and lifting weights for your mind. And I think that in today's society, with technology and all of the ways that we interact, there's far too little of that happening. And so I think that I would encourage everybody watching to go and pick up this book, because it will introduce you to that better version of yourself, and it will give you a true evaluation tool. What I was thinking when you talked about the book that you do for people's culture is that book is almost that same discovery for yourself.
Without a doubt, and that's the prerequisite to the semesters that we have, where I work with the organization's founder, CEO, and the team, well, generally just the founder, for 3 hours every other week to go through the actual semesters, which are start at a year and then they keep going. So it isn't a call where you have a conversation and just like an accountability. No. If we don't learn new truths to make our previous truths false in relation to what results we want in the future, we'll just continually be living the same exact truth through other masks. So here's a good example. The individual who, after 20 years, becomes successful. All the people that were doubting them, that condescended them once they saw them get their success, are now calling them and saying, hey, how you doing? Or they're showing up to their seminar. See, this is the reality, is that person that's now being called, that successful person, that founder, that leader, didn't necessarily have to change at all psychologically to get the same people that doubted them to now admire them. And the reality is they usually never do. But what does change is what they drive, where they live, the idea they have about themselves that masks who they actually are, which is the same person. And then both of those parties, the admirers and the guru, the leader, the successful person, are really just tied to each other as the parent seeking the parent, but through the child. So the successful person seeking now the admirer, and the admirer seeking the parent through the successful person. And there's an innocence in admiration for he who does not realize one day he may be admired. Friedrich Nietzsche, quote, not mine, is that the reality is, without learning new things about the world through yourself, for yourself, you can't break that mask that ultimately comes when you are not the quitter, when you are the successful person that has made it 30 years in, that everyone that doubted them now admires them. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've actually changed the person that you can look at the mirror. And that is fundamentally what I do behind the scenes. It's very important. And it doesn't just happen with someone reading a book. That just starts their process to be open and realize that they're a liar. But it isn't. This is the most important thing, because our words will be opposite, fundamentally, most of the old ways of our actions. So, for example, this isn't about them. This isn't about. It's like, Brian, this isn't about the reader reading the book better because we wrote it. No. This is about us seeing ourselves better because we wrote it. They're going to interpret whatever they're going to interpret based on their perspective. It's not about them. It's only about us. And because it's about us, when we're aware of that, we're free. We can let go and stop controlling everything, because it's easy to control when you think you've let go. And that is of the industry that we are in, my friend.
No question, man. No question. And I think that whole idea of how people communicate and what they omit, what you were talking about when you first started that exercise of writing, and the things that you omit, you can't understand that any other way. Because when you're going through writing, there's an intentionality of taking a pen, putting it to paper. Words flow out when we're talking so easy. When you're writing on a page, it's a completely different experience, right? And so when you're typing on a keyboard, it's a completely different experience. And so I think that in today's world, again, technology, all of these different ways that we have to communicate now has really, sent that in a different direction that I don't think people take the time to think about enough, right? I think that, the amount of time that we spend actually trying to understand ourselves is so little that all of the things that go around us just keep happening. One of the analogies I use frequently is that most people in the world live like fish food. They choose to just float on the surface, because what's underneath the water, once you get under the water, there's a lot of pressure there of truly understanding yourself, right? It's scary. You get down in there, you don't know what to do. It's uncharted territory. And the deeper you go into understanding yourself, into reading that understanding, there's a lot of pressure to that. But as you do it, and I'd be interested to hear, your path of doing that, writing that book, and then, obviously you're committed to doing this every single day. How has and we'll use this word again, how has your perspective of yourself and your perspective of others changed as a result of doing that exercise over and over and over and over again from the time that you started it to today?
Yeah, well, I think if we had the conversation tomorrow, who I would be different than it is today. I would like to make a point. I think that as a culture, we have there's a large misnomer around media, like social. We haven't changed. It's just revealing who we are.
It's the picking and choosing of revealing, right? It's to your point, whether you put the video out or not it's all a choice, right? And so social media reveals the version of people that they're comfortable with sharing.
Yes, so that's where I would say that's what the mistake is that it's the opposite. If we're not aware enough to choose between our decisions, then what we reveal on there isn't what we're deciding to show. It's actually who we are. It is them. That is them. This is just the rawness of the falsehood of society. No, it isn't. People are picking. Oh yeah, we're picking the best thing. That's the reality. That's the trick. Is we think, because we are at bottom. We live in a victim culture. At bottom, internationally. No. Social media isn't changing anything. People are picking what they want you to see. No, that's exactly who they are. And when you're not aware, you cannot actually let go. See, the letting go is an instantaneous thing. So if you're going to ask me, and yeah, everyone needs to watch this many times and listen and write and disagree with me and send that to me so I can learn. They need to do that for all of us. And for me, I want that. I want to learn. But especially this part, because that is very wrong. And the entire narrative, personal development-wise, corporate-wise, and politically, is based on a falsehood of social media is making us X. No. The medium's the message. Social media is revealing Y or Y. And until you're aware that awareness is a spiral and not finite, you're not aware. You're a liar. You have no idea. And you're going to continue to create masks and false realities. And the reality is this, is complex. And people that say things are simple. Be simple. So how has my perspective changed? Well, I couldn't have articulated myself put it this, I was kicked out of 2 high schools. I never was formally educated. I felt like I was on an island my whole life. I decided to educate myself 10 years ago, and I've continued to do that. And the point is to not be a jerk off. It's like, I was reading, philosophy yesterday, Kant and Hume and all these people. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be that person that creates this huge belief system that you end up saying, we argue to infinity about what happens next. How about let's just pragmatically articulate ourselves in this world where all the things that we learn, philosophies that we live by, the mediums that we use to share our truth, can we just not kill each other? Can we just not be rude to the guy that accidentally spills the coffee? Can we just help this? Let's bring it back, to businesses. Can we just not condescend our employees in front of other employees? Can we empathize with the person that's sick because of their kid? Can we let go of our insecurity for one moment that's creating a shield which is our identity, this pride? I'm sorry, but that's one of the most dangerous words in the world, consisting there's over 200 countries. Pride. It's a dangerous word. It only takes national pride to have a Holocaust. It only takes national pride to have a war. It only takes pride in your company to view your competitors as competitors when there really isn't such a thing in a collaborative information age where we all see each other naked. So, no, got to be careful. See, this is very important. Everyone needs to write down what are the words that they say often in conversation with people that their gut, right? That's the metaphor. It's really their brain. That their gut tells, oh, I shouldn't say this word. Write down those words and be weary of repeating them. Like that's something very tangible. Every word that we utter is a very important energy transference of the things that we think that can influence ourselves and other people constantly. So like every time I swear, I acknowledge it and I attempt to, like I swore twice on this. That was 2 units of energy that just like, or vessels, right? 2 little vessels bringing potential energy to be used as energy for you and how you treat kids to you and the audience. God forbid. Now I've just wasted the finite amount of time having this reality with the words I speak. Like words matter. Swearing matters. I've been told quite often, you use a lot of big words. Yeah. The point of a word is what's the utility? What's the thought? What can occur after? I have to continually be learning and become more useful so that I can value myself more, society can be better. So that's another thing. How long you got?
I got at least another 7 minutes.
Perfect.
It is, man, I knew this conversation would be good, but I love it, dude. I feel like, by the way, I feel like it's just me and you here, so that's what's cool. Because this is similar to the conversation that we had in Philadelphia. I want to talk about you. Do you work with a variety of companies, small companies, big companies, number of people?
Yeah, mortgage, real estate, roofing, coaching companies. I work behind the scenes with coaching companies. So that's why on Instagram it says the coach of the coaches. It's a play on words, but that's the reality because our education is so powerful. A lot of companies will want to use that. So I said real estate, also cars. That's a new industry, but that client hasn't started yet. However, I'm not biased only working with those industries. Wherever there's humans that have ideas that need to be spread and they want to be less jerks to their children and their employees, that would be a conversation, you know?
That's your spot. Yeah. And so I'm interested to see, how does that change? How do you see the culture shift or the difficulty conveying the message, the ultimate idea, and creating that consistency that creates a powerful brand, right? We all agree that like those brands that people want to go to, that they drive themselves to go work at, those brands have done something special that makes people want to go there. They've created a consistency that is hard to duplicate. And so my question is, how do you find that different in the smaller companies that you work with versus those that have maybe hundreds of employees?
Yeah. Fundamentally, one of the most important questions on this conversation, there's been a million studies. Here's a tangible example. Book called Walden 2. Anyone that's interested in culture should read this book with the thought that this idea of a society was actually tested in real life. It was called Walden 2. And it was written by, I believe that the name will come to me, a psychologist. Maybe it was B.F. Skinner, behaviorist, who wrote this book based on the inspiration of Ralph Waldo Emerson's book Walden, where he went on a lake and basically became self-sustained. There were societies or communities all around the world, not a lot of them, but a couple case studies that attempted to model this utopian society of Walden 2. Now, they ended up not working out, but they found that under 50 people in the community, it managed to last long enough to teeter into oblivion. So I'll use that as an example as the larger the organization, the larger the country. For example, America, did it have more cultural alignment today or less than 1789 when we unanimously voted President George Washington? It had more alignment when we beat the British. There was an enemy. There was a narrative. There was a reason. We were together. And now it's like, let's kill each other. In contrast, at least. Okay. So the larger the organization, the larger the family. You have 14 kids. I can't even remember the two of their names. 2 kids, you can remember 2 names. The larger or smaller the family matters. The smaller or larger the company matters. It becomes more important, to answer your question clearly, how clear the story is, the language, the symbolism, all of these mediums, all of this architecture becomes more important the larger the organization. But the reality is that actually contradicts another truth, that when it isn't clear from day one, the founder is going to die alone anyway. So put it this way. It's important no matter what, because if you have no reason to live, you're not living. As an organization grows, any ecosystem, they've proven this in primatology with chimps. You get 100 people. Brian's not going to see all 99 employees. So how are the children going to learn from the parents? Because children don't learn by what you say; they learn by what you're doing when they watch you. So it becomes more and more important. Like what I do, the only way, my responsibility, which is what really, like in my line of work, is to continue to develop value internally and present it explicitly. So the largest organizations in the world say, help us. All of our responsibility in whatever medium we use to grow. So to answer your question another way, because I like to answer things many ways so we can learn many ways, and that's my insecurity just popping up right now. See, if I don't acknowledge it, I'll repeat the patterns, because I know I can be fairly complex and lose people, but I have to, at the same time explain it the way my mind works, right? Remember, when people justify themselves out loud, that is their unconscious insecurity explicating it. If I don't acknowledge it, I can't control the beast. Like right here in this, do I want everyone to know I'm insecure? Actually, yes. Or else I'm a liar. I'm lying to myself. So anyway, it is extremely important to do it, whether you have 1 person or 1,000. It becomes more difficult the more people, because everything starts true and ends false. And I'm not hired to stop it. There should be turnover. There should be organizations that go out of business. There should be, if any civilizations didn't go out of business, America wouldn't be so great. We should really be more grateful for all the spilt blood that we live on every single day, of all the people that have died to make this, democratic republic possible. So, I answered that question about 17 different ways. Culture matters.
What is the one, if you could give the business owners, the business people watching this, the one thing or the one exercise, the most important thing that they could implement, like an actual tactical approach to, starting that conversation about culture? And I know that's a difficult question because it's so complex, and maybe you could give them a couple, but just something that people maybe you see overlooked that you work with, that is something that really allows that organization to take identity.
Put it this way. If an organization uses all of the architecture, the stories, the symbolism, the language, they can create a dictatorship. The only thing that stops the dictatorship is education. And to go back to the Socratics, the answer lies within. The owner of a company of 1 employee or 10,000 or the president or whatever of the world must read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go. Or else accountability without education is autocracy, is dictatorship. Education is not finite. Education is not memorization. Education is imagination, and its explication through actually listening to other people and helping them grow symbolizes the biological mechanism of a parent and a child becomes the parent of the grandparent, which now they take care of. Education is the most important thing. So if the owner doesn't invest time in having conversations with people where they're actually listening, it's all in vain. And then I'm hired to just be some kind of PR for a company that's full of shit. No way, sir, because that leads to wars and stuff. So that's very important. So, okay, want to make it simple? Listen to your wife. Listen to your husband. Listen to your kids. You're going to start listening to your employees after you listen to them. Teach your employees everything you know. Make sure you're not rude to them when they ask questions, because then they'll stop asking questions and they'll just nod to you like they know what's going on, and now you're just talking to yourself. Make sure you have mentors. Make sure you have that person that isn't your spouse, that is your mentor, that is your coach, your cultural mentor, your consultant. Make sure you have an army of people to help you grow and dedicate your life to learning. You may actually value yourself as a human and build a damn great company. And I'll tell you this, in 10, 15 years, the only value that a CEO will bring to an organization is their spirit. It won't be their office, because it won't exist. It won't be much, because you don't get smarter and more educated in this world just through the fact that we can all have these conversations. We can go on YouTube right now and learn Harvard and all these places. Well, then we're in trouble, and we're like, as a species, we're in trouble. So you really got to think big and really take your life seriously, because yes, when someone meets someone that takes their life seriously, the person that doesn't believes they're arrogant, and that's the irony, because they're the arrogant person.
I think that is a fantastic place for us to stop, and I want to wrap it up by saying this, man. Number one, what you just said summarizes what I aspire to be as a leader, as a business owner. I think that I've studied quite a bit, that I have a real genuine care for culture, for understanding people, for speaking to people respectfully, for doing all of those things. I think we all have things that we need to do to continue to evolve that, because the elite companies of the future will be those that embrace and love human beings and support them and educate them and do all the things that you just described. And I wanted to bring you on here to show people that. And so I can't appreciate the time that you spent here this morning more, man. I appreciate your friendship. We don't talk a lot, by the way. I wish we talked more. We're both very busy. But you guys see the value that this guy brings, not just to the companies that he works with, but to the world, to the people that interact with him, follow him. Where can people find you on all the platforms, man, just so that people have the ability to connect?
Yeah, so Jay Doran, the Culture Man, on Instagram, and just my name, JayDoran, LinkedIn, Facebook personal, fan page, YouTube. Like you said, there's thousands of videos, interviews on the playlist on YouTube. Every week I interview people to listen, to hear what is unsaid, to learn, to grow, and to share their voice, all different industries. Check that out. And the Culture Matters podcast is starting in October, so stay tuned for that. Send me a message with what you've written on personal Facebook or Instagram, whatever medium you'd have. LinkedIn, it's also Jay Doran. Send me a message with what you've written, what your thoughts were, and I'll be sure to respond to you. And anyone that invests in their book, which is what 30 Days is, not my book, it's your book, send me the videos, even if you don't post them because you're working on yourself. I've watched every video that anyone's ever sent me, and I've had so many more ideas of how I could be better. So thank you again, Brian.
Brother, I appreciate it so much, man. And I'm sure the people, there's a lot of comments on here that you'll be able to read and respond to afterwards, but just people having mind-blowing, light bulbs going off as you're speaking. And so hang on here for a minute, man, after we finish this, after we disconnect, and we'll chat for a second. But I appreciate you guys. There's a lot of people hung on here, man, for the entire hour and 10 minutes. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for all your support every single morning at 7:30. We're here on Morning Perspective, trying to bring you value, a different perspective on life, a way to just start your morning off on a positive note. And certainly this morning, this guy, Mr. J. Doran, helped us all do that, and hopefully open your mind to a whole different world of things out there that maybe you did think about, maybe you didn't, but hopefully this was helpful to you. So from the bottom of my heart, man, I appreciate your time, your information. I appreciate your intellect, and being willing to share that with other people means a lot. So thank you so much, man. And we will see all you guys tomorrow morning right here on Morning Perspective, 7:30, same place, same time.